This live stream is brought to you by Still and Evergreen Garden Care. Still is Australia's most trusted brand of garden power tools, backed by 95 years of German engineering excellence. To get your hands on their range, visit your local Still dealer today or visit still.com.au. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the best-known and trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. To be inspired and easily create and maintain your garden, head to lovethegarden.com.
Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website.
G'day and welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Neville Passmore and I am excited to be here today with you. I'm filling in for Trev. He's out doing some filming today for the Garden Gurus. Now we're streaming live from the Garden Gurus Facebook site, the Still Facebook site and Garden Express Facebook site, as well as our own YouTube channel. So we're everywhere from the looks of it. Now what's coming up on the show today, David Van Burkel is going to join us from Garden Express. Now I've known David for a million years, I think, and he's got some interesting plants to offer this week. And we're also going to talk about their exciting Flower Fest, which, as I understand it, is making up for the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show. Now, as always, after that, we're talking to Trevor while he's out filming, and he's got a blower to show us. So that sounds pretty interesting. As always, lots of prizes to give away. We've got 4 packets of Mr. Fothergill's seeds, which are right here to give away, and also a fabulous little seed raising punnet. Now, this one's made out of silicon. Very interesting little arrangement and terrific when it comes to reusing it. You can clean these up superbly and they go on forever. I was just saying earlier, we've just got a baking tray for bread at the moment using this silicon, and it's terrific stuff. Nothing sticks to it. Okay, so right now we've got a question from Annette in the Gold Coast. And it's about a ginger plant which was given to her 4 years ago. It was supposed to flower, but it hasn't as yet. Now it's died across the winter months, and yet in the spring and summer it has profuse amounts of foliage, so it's growing well, but never a flower. So she asks, is there a time frame within the age of the plant that they flower, or is there something that she should be doing to encourage flowering? Well, gingers normally flower every year, so this plant is not performing as it should. So I would think that you need to get a bit of potash into the system. So give it a feed with a high potash fertilizer. You can go to a basic sulfate of potash, which is fairly easy to get hold of, but there's a number of flower encouraging fertilizers on the market as well. So get that going. The only other thing I'd think about is it getting enough light? So plants that are growing in dark locations tend to have not so much in the way of flowering. So that might be something that you can look at. Now, let us know if you've got any technical issues that you're having trouble with after the questions. Okay, so we have a technical issue at our end, I'm sorry, and we are dealing with it. And we'll keep answering your questions. Okay, all right, sorry about that. Okay, Craig in Sydney, how do I get rid of leaf curl on my blood orange tree? Now, very common problem with citrus, basically. I can remember some 30 odd years ago, we could see the citrus leaf minor damage coming from the eastern states across to the west, and it hadn't arrived here yet. I was out at a garden, and I found this leaf which had those characteristic little squiggly lines in the leaf. So I brought it back and slapped it on the photocopier and sent it out to all the stores that I was working with and said, hey, keep an eye out for this. It's a brand new problem to Western Australia. And within minutes, I had about 4 calls coming back. What do you mean, a new problem? We've been seeing this for years. So these things do move in under the cover. All right, how to fix it? Essentially, there's no insecticidal sprays that you can use successfully. The best bet is to actually put an oil spray over the foliage when the new leaves are coming out. And what happens is the moth that lays its eggs into the leaves doesn't like to land on an oily surface. So it's basically repelling them because of that oil. So the trick is, as I say, when the new foliage just starts to emerge, it's soft enough for this bug to actually lay its eggs into the leaf. So if you can get rid of it at that point, happy days. Okay, now we'll be back. We have to cut the video at the moment, and we'll be back in 30 seconds. Running. Now, Valerie from Lake Cathy in New South Wales wants a bit of advice on how to treat rust under frangipani leaves. Now, that is a fungal problem that affects frangipanis, and it usually occurs in fairly humid locations. So, for an example, it's fairly likely to happen in South Queensland and Sydney, less likely to happen in dry old Perth. The best treatment for it is if you can open up the bush so that there's better air movement. That might mean a bit of pruning. You can use a spray called Mancozeb, which is quite effective against rusts. So that's probably the 2 best bets there. Okay. Now, Trevor's out on location, but he's joining us this morning to show off an exciting product. How you going there, Trev?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you going?
Oh, good. This is all fun. It's exciting stuff.
It's nice to see you in the chair. Look, I'm having a ball. I'm out with a crew, but you know what it's like, Nev. You know, you got the film crew coming over. You want the garden to look good. I've got a bit of space like you have, a big garden, and it takes a bit of effort to clean it up. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a profile on one of my favourite tools. I don't know how we ever got away with just having a rake in the past, but this is my favourite tool. This is an absolutely brilliant blower vac from Still. It's called the BGA 86. Now, it's just one of a couple that we've profiled in recent times on the Garden Guru show, but I just love this. And the reason I love it is because it's battery powered. So with this bigger one, it's the bigger batteries, the APs, but they're just fantastic. And with these batteries, they go forever. I've been out giving this a really good run, and you can see the green lights are on. I'm halfway through the battery, and I've done the whole garden. I just love this this sort of product range. And they've got, you know, typical of Still, I suppose, they've got all of these things that they've thought through so carefully. So when it comes to, well, one, pop the battery in. Just hang on a second. This is where it gets difficult with one hand. You can see I'm out on my own. You pop the battery in like this, and you can hear it click.
Yep.
And then you've got to push that button. Can you see my thumb? You can see my thumb.
I can't at the moment. No, I think I'm seeing a bit of the garden at the moment.
How's that?
Okay,
So it's one of those fantastic safety devices that you've got with a tool like this. But So powerful, Nev. They're just so handy. This new battery-powered gardening range that covers just about everything you could ever think of as far as tools you'd need.
Well, I was inspired by seeing one of your stories on a line trimmer from
Yep.
Still. I went and bought it, the same battery, and I did about 2.5 hours of trimming a couple of weeks back on the one
Wow.
battery. And I thought that was incredible. Yeah,
Well,
so they go a long time.
I was going to say this one. This is I've got a lot of pathways. I've got a lot of dirt. We had a lot of rain on the weekend actually, and it washed a fair amount of silt all over the driveway. So to give everything a good clean up before the guys got around, I got out. It took me about 15 minutes, and at no point does this thing slow down. Now I do have two batteries, and I've got the fast charger, so it doesn't take long for this to actually recharge. But you've got an adjustable nozzle on this, which allows you to extend down and get a little bit closer. So depending on how tall or short you are, it allows you to be more efficient in the process. And I think it's this kind of thought process that's still put into their product that's really taken the whole thing to a new level at the moment. I'm absolutely loving them. And to be quite honest, I've got the old engine powered machine sitting in the shed, and it's just gathering dust at the moment. It just never gets pulled out
Yep.
because battery's so convenient.
Well, I have major problems with petrol powered garden tools. They never work for me. I can never get the damn things to start. So
Yeah.
I'm a convert to batteries from quite some time ago now. And I have to say, of all of the tools in my shed, number one in terms of use is the blower. You just use it
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
Well, we used to get around with a rake, and certainly now, I'm starting to see quite a few autumn leaves falling onto the lawn. Instead of trying to get out and rake them all off the lawn, it takes me 5 minutes with the blower vac just to blow them back into the garden beds where I want the leaf to stay because I want it to break down and improve the soil. But
Yep.
what I'm finding is that when it comes to pathways, it's just so much better than getting a broom out. Now, that's probably, when you take a look at it, it's probably cheating in a way, but we don't want to be a slave to maintaining the garden. We want to be out there enjoying the garden. And that's the beauty about these tools from Still. There's everything from hedge trimmers, extendable hedge trimmers and chainsaws, right through to obviously the blowers and the line trimmers, as you've mentioned. But they are absolutely fabulous, Nifty. I'm just so thrilled with it. And just at the moment, as we're seeing things like, I don't know whether you can see my dahlias and my roses, they're getting to the end, so they're starting to drop their petals, and that can make quite a mess, and they can stick to the pathway. But the strength of this blower is such that it cleans everything up. I'm just thrilled with them.
Magic stuff. Well, there's a lot of work needs doing in the garden at the moment. We've just pruned a massive rose hedge over the weekend, and that's the perfect time. Even though you can gather up the branches, there's so much leaves and in the way of leaves and
Debris.
flowers behind that just makes a terrific job to tidy it all up. So yeah, I'm much in love with them as well.
And I can remember when we first started the Garden Gurus, I think it was about the time, I think it was Kew Gardens, the Royal Horticultural Society came out. They'd been doing those rose trials there, and there was, the perennial rose experts who'd had 50 years of training who went through and, only pruned to a right-hand facing angle, and they did all these things to make sure the roses were perfect. And it was
Yep.
about that time I remember you adopted the just get out with a hedge trimmer and give them a cutback because that's all they need. And then the
Yeah,
research came back and proved it, didn't it? So
absolutely, yes.
hedge trimmers are a simple way to get into your roses as well.
And they take off the bulk. So my method of pruning roses, which I pinched from Kim Cirrus in South Australia, was
Yep.
a half by a pencil. So the first thing you do is choose a point between the ground and the top of the growth and just cut everything straight through. And hedge trimmers, even chainsaws in old wood work really well. So it's a
Wow.
great start. You can then see where you're going for the next cut, which is to take out every second cane, but go for the old one. So yeah, that sort of technology is brilliant, and you don't want to be trailing a cord around the rose bushes. It gets caught every time, not just occasionally.
Yeah.
So battery powered gear now can actually make a real mess of those in a beautiful way.
Well, it's certainly been, a real revelation for me, and it's transformed the way I'm looking after my garden. Of course, Great thing about Still is that Still is only sold through the Still dealers. They've got the complete network right across the country. And of course, most of those dealers also service the equipment. So if you ever do have any problems, they're there to back you up as well. It's one of the things I love about them most.
Yep, beautiful. All right, Trev, it's been great. Thank you for that. And we'll be back on the show in about 1/2 of a millisecond, I think is how.
All right, mate.
All right, we'll see you then. Okay. Rightio. Next, we've got a question from Debbie in Perth. I have 2 years of grasshoppers eating everything. I know with cooler weather they'll die off, but what is the best way to get rid of these pests that are making such a mess of the leaves? Well, here's one out of left field for you, Debbie. Molasses, blackstrap molasses. If you get a hold of this, dilute it with warm to hot water to the point where you've got 7 parts of water to 1 part molasses. Spray it over the foliage of your plants, and it increases the sugar level, and caterpillars and grasshoppers won't touch it. Now, it works really well until the next rain, and then you have to do it all over again. So I hope that helps you out. Thanks, Debbie. Now, Donna, I'm not sure where Donna's from, but what is the best way to treat scale on orchids? Pretty tricky one, because many of the orchids are susceptible to damage through the application of oil-based sprays. So I'd have a crack at firstly making sure that ants aren't a problem. So if you can control ants, you'll often control the spread of scale insects. One way of doing that might be as simple as getting some petroleum jelly and running that around the base of the pot so that they can't get up there. Then I hand treat the scale, see if you can scrape them off. You can use a mix of methylated spirits and water, 1 meths to 4 water, and just paint that on literally with a small paintbrush. So give that a go and see how you go. Thank you for that, Donna. Okay, now Keith from Moorebank in New South Wales. He's got a large mango tree with clusters of 5 to 10 mangoes. Some of them have a brown mark on them. Do I know what this could be? Okay, look, best guess is the biggest disease problem of mangoes worldwide, a disease called anthracnose. And this needs some sort of a copper-based spray to combat it. That's likely. Another possibility is fruit fly. Now, I don't know what problems you might have in your area with fruit fly. They often do attack them once the fruit have started to colour. So hope that might help you out there. And there is nothing quite like the taste of a freshly picked mango when it's nice and ripe. Beautiful. Okay, Kate, who comes from Bell in Queensland. What's the best way to eradicate red spider mite on indoor plants? Okay, it's a tough one. You can buy predatory mites that you can actually introduce to your plants. They the insects or the mites are actually present in a form of vermiculite. So you actually dab the vermiculite around your plants, and the mites emerge from that and attack the red spider mite. So that's probably the most environmentally friendly way to tackle them. Another thing to think about is that mites don't like humid, moist conditions. So if you can increase the humidity, particularly on the underside of the foliage of your plants, that can help. And a way of doing that is to put some bowls of water under your plants and even syringe them down occasionally, particularly once again on the underside, and even wipe them down with a wet cloth to upset the spider mites. So good luck with that one. Tracy from Victoria, somewhere in Victoria, has started growing an avocado tree from seed. How long will it take to fruit? And do I have any advice on taking care of it? Well, look, it's a fabulous indoor tree. It really performs well as an indoor plant. How long is it going to take to fruit? Interesting question, and there's no real answer to that because seedlings are highly variable. So I've heard of people waiting for 10, even 15 years to get their first fruit from a seedling, and yet I've also heard of people that have got fruit within 12 to 18 months. So it's the whole spectrum. You don't know quite what you're going to get, so that's one of the reasons if you want avocado fruit that you would buy a named grafted variety. But look, it's an easy care plant. It looks terrific indoors. A lot of people can't imagine that, but glossy foliage, large leaves, and that way it's getting some value even if it doesn't produce fruit for you in a hurry. Okay, now pretty excited to have David Van Burkel from Garden Express joining us today. Dave, it's been a fair while. How the heck are you?
Really good, Neville, and yourself?
I couldn't be better.
Mate, it has been a while. I think maybe a flower show a few years ago I've seen you and a couple of times prior to that, but really good to see you again.
Likewise, yeah, and you're looking very young.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, travelling in a good paddock, so happy days.
Yep, beautiful. So now, what have you got for us this week?
This week, Neville, we've got a couple of Protea collections on the go. Proteas are a fabulous part of our Flower Fest, really, really popular around the country. Of course, they're quite diverse in the areas that they can grow. They love the sort of cooler weather to set the flowers. So we've got some beautiful varieties. I think we've got over a dozen online at the moment, a few individuals. But the collections, Neville, saving 20%, down to $35.70 for 3 plants.
3 plants, right? Well, they're slow-growing plants, particularly in the early stages, but such magnificent garden shrubs and long season of flowering, and they're certainly beloved of our Australian birds, particularly. They really make that the centre of their area of use of a garden once you've got a few proteas going.
They certainly do, and if you need to have a little bit of space for them, don't you? Once they start to really get up there and throw their nice long stems, beautiful, beautiful big flowers which just last forever. And I find I've got quite a few in the garden, of course, and after a few years, you start to get enough blooms to pick and make a beautiful big arrangement indoors, but still enjoying, having the flowers out there for the birds and for yourself.
Well, that sort of leads me to some memories of my first visit to a flower farm in South Australia where they were growing proteas and leucadendrons and leucospurnums. And it was the first time I'd seen these plants really grown to their proper extent. And, they were just knockout material. And because they're bracts as opposed to flowers that we see, they've got such long life. You can get weeks, sometimes months out of a cut flower from the Protea family. So they're great value indoors as well.
Absolutely. And look, making some really dried arrangements as well, the leucadendrons and particularly just last forever with that nice colour. And the farm that you talk about, we've got a couple locally here where they produce the flowers off, and it is unbelievable to see a nicely maintained bush or large shrub just full of this beautiful colour. So as I said, they're one of our most popular features of the Flower Fest because of their beauty.
Well, I can remember talking to a grower over here, a flower grower, who grew Banksias and Proteas on the same property, and he said the Banksias got hammered by all the insects because they've been around for a few million years here in Australia, but the Proteas didn't seem to be affected, and they were as clean as a whistle. And he said he talked to growers in South Africa, and they said exactly the reverse. The Proteas get hammered over there, and the Banksias shine through without any trouble. So they're pretty free from pests over here, which is terrific.
I've noticed that. Yeah, it's a good way to put that into relativity, and for sure they're clean and really quite easy once they're established. Beautiful.
Now, David, you mentioned Flower Fest. Tell me all about it.
Oh, well, the Flower Fest, we're a good week or so in now. We're having a lot of fun, getting a lot of orders and interest from customers. And the team is still putting together some great deals. We've got a beautiful daffodil show bag coming up, Neville. I've got one of my older growers, and he's trying to quit a little bit of his stock, which is timely for us to put that together in a massive deal, and that's coming up later in the week.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, Dave, thank you very much for joining us. It's been fun and great to catch up with you again.
Yep,
And,
you too, Neville, and keep it up, mate. You look fantastic on the screen there.
Okay, thank you. And for our viewers, have a look at the promo that's about to come up right now, I believe. Beautiful. This weekend, Trevor and I are going to introduce you to a fantastic new look garden centre. This is the Waldex in Melville. It's a revamped store, but wow, what a knockout. And talking knockouts, have a look at this beauty. It's a new grevillea called Silver Moon, and it's come from a breeding program at Kings Park. Now, this little fella is an absolute magnet for bees, but particularly birds in your garden. So check it out and we'll see you this weekend. Okay, the plant of the week this week is turmeric. So this is a spice from the ginger family. This is what the plant looks like, and this thumper here I literally pulled out of the hydroponic system this morning to bring in and show you. So down here is where the action happens. That's the root system. The rhizomes are the part of the plant that you actually harvest, and we harvest these in September. So here we are. We've got nearly 6 months to go before harvest, and you can see already there's a massive amount of growth taking place here. Now, curcumin is the active ingredient in the turmeric plant, and that's got lots of accolades down through the ages. So it's been used in Ayurvedic medicine as well as Chinese herbal medicine, literally for thousands of years. It's very well respected as an anti-inflammatory, and so I try to get some of this into me every day. Now, how do you do that? Because it's not a particularly nice thing to eat. Well, first of all, we harvest the rhizomes around about September, dry them in a food dryer, and then pulverize them into this powder. So this goes into our smoothie every day, about a teaspoon. So that's a good start. But then the killer application, as far as I'm concerned, is we make a brew called Zinger beer. So it's like ginger beer with turmeric added in as well. So you get the two of them. And they're in the family Zingiberriaceae, so there's where the name comes from. Anyway, this is a fabulously refreshing drink. So how do you grow it? It's a tropical herb. It needs to be grown ideally in a pot, I think, in most areas, unless you've got summer rainfall climates such as southern southern Queensland and New South Wales, but it can be grown quite successfully in Perth and even Melbourne, particularly as a potted plant. I haven't seen these flowering in the nursery at this stage, but because we don't let them stay more than 1 year, so it gets stuck into them. Very attractive flowers, however, when you do see them, and there's quite a number of the turmerics that are used as florist flowers. So that's what the plant. Okay, we're back again. Sorry about those technical issues. That's why I love being out in the garden. None of this technical stuff worries us. Okay, we're talking about turmeric as a spice that you can grow at home. You can buy these plants in some nurseries or have a look on Facebook Marketplace. There's a few opportunities there as well. Okay, now back to questions. So Sandra from Brisbane, when can I prune my sunshine blueberries? Well, pretty good rule of thumb here is prune anything after it's fruited. So these are mostly evergreen plants, the blueberries. So I'd wait until you've picked your last crop and then just trim them back. And you can trim them fairly hard if you need to, but you don't have to do that to get fruit. So basically give them a light trim, probably give them a feed straight away and get some action happening. Kirsty from Rutherford in New South Wales. I have an orange tree that has a fruit on it for quite some time, but the fruit is not changing colour, not turning. Okay, well look, I wouldn't worry about that at all. It's very common for oranges to hang on to their fruit for a long time. Navel oranges tend to come online May, June, but if it's a Valencia, for an example, they really hit their straps about September. So it means even my oranges at home are still bright green. You can just see the beginnings of a little bit of yellow in some of the fruits, but mostly they're as green as grass. So hang fire, I'm sure it'll all work out fine. Now, Shu, once again, not sure where Shu comes from. When should I start pruning my roses? They have so much black spot and scale. Okay, well, there's an interesting answer to that. You can prune them anytime you like. I think that the best time for you is now going to be to wait until the middle of winter when they're completely dormant. Cut them back very hard, and you do need to treat that scale. Once again, oil-based sprays are pretty good value for that. When it comes to pruning roses, I've got a bit of a philosophy there, and that is that every time you have a flush of flowers and that stops, then jump in and reduce the plant back lightly. So give it not a short haircut, but a long haircut, if I can call it that, and they will come back into new growth and more flower for you. So it's not inconceivable that you could prune them back 4 or 5 times a year. So there you go. Christine from Stirling in Western Australia, hoping you can help with my sick rose. I think it's been affected by chili thrips. What is the best treatment, please? Okay, well, chili thrips are a new pest to Perth. They were first discovered here just after 2000, the year 2000, but they've been hanging around doing nothing until about 18 months ago when they hit with a bang, and it was a very mysterious problem. And it still is a bit of a mysterious problem because these thrips strike when the foliage is very fresh and young, and by the time their damage is noticed, they've gone on to the next bush. So that makes them a bit hard to follow down. The only treatment that we've found that works for home gardeners is the soap-based sprays, so Natra soap and the likes, but it's all in the timing. So you actually have to wait until the new foliage is just starting to come through and spray it, and that's in a prophylactic way. So in other words, you're trying to get ahead of the issue, and the bugs or the thrip don't like to mix it with those soap-based sprays, so they go elsewhere. So that's about all you can do at this stage. Okay, now Anya from Parramatta, New South Wales, what's the best way to get rose cuttings to strike? I'm doing something wrong. I have hydroponics, which is awesome, till they go into the soil when they die. I've tried root powder and potting mix. Okay, well, look, I think the best thing to suggest is firstly that you take midwinter cuttings. So when your roses are fully dormant, it is the easiest time to get them to strike. I would certainly recommend using some of the hormone gels. They work very well. Get them started as you have in, say, perlite or clay. I'm not sure what hydroponic medium you have, but get them out of their early spring. As soon as when you tug on the plant, on the cutting, and you can feel resistance, it means that there's a root system holding it into terra firma, if I can put it that way. That's the time to get them out and put them into a bigger pot with potting mix, but I'd even mix a bit of perlite with that just to sort of break it down a little bit. Get them started in a pot, and it can be quite a small, skinny pot. Once they're growing, then you can pop them on and they're as happy as Larry. Okay, Debbie. Not sure where Debbie's from. How tall does the silver moon grevillea get? Now, I don't know silver moon, so I can't answer that one. However, probably the best bet is just to Google it. It's a variety I'm not familiar with. There is a new one out from Western Australia, from the Kings Park, called something similar to that, and it might in fact be the one you've got, in which case that's about a 1.5 to 2 metre high plant. But they do vary a lot. We're planting out grevilleas now that will go to 3 and 4 metres high, so there's quite a variation from those to the ground covers. So not a very good answer there, but I hope that helps in some way. Robbie, once again, not sure where you come from, Robbie, has hedges, Prunus lusitanica, and the leaves are all dying. What can I use to bring them back? Okay, I would suggest here that you mulch the plants really well, give them a light general purpose fertilizer, and basically that's it for the moment. Just watch to see how they come through. Eva from Perth, struggling to get control of mealybug infestation with oil sprays. They especially seem to love my chilies, rosella and manuka pot plants. Is there any way of getting them under control? Well, Eva, you are facing one of the most tricky and difficult pests to deal with in pot growing. Once again, ants can be a transporting body here to move them around, so try and get ants under control. And once again, I mentioned earlier that idea of using some petroleum jelly around the base of the pots so that the ants won't get over it. I do use a paintbrush with meths to actually touch the individual mealybugs when you can see them, and also a dilute spray of 1 to 4, so 1 part methylated spirits to 4 parts water, and just lightly spray that down into the axils, because it's in those little leaf axils that the mealybug hide. So I hope that helps. Okay, now, so that's it for today's episode of the Garden Gurus Live. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for your patience with our technical issues today. Trevor's going to be back for another episode next Monday at 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Lachlan will reach out to this week's winners. Make sure you check your messages to see if you won that packet of seeds, or if you're really lucky, that terrific seedling punter. That's a ripper. The Garden Gurus Autumn Series is back on Channel 9, at 4:30 p.m. Remember, you can always jump onto our website and catch up on our previous stories on thegardengurus.tv, or your YouTube channel, thegardengurus.tv. So you can listen back to today's live stream and catch up on previous episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast and Audible. We'll see you again Monday, 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Happy gardening, everyone.
Visit the Garden Guru's online store and browse through a collection of high-quality, German-made Wolfgarten tools. You'll also find a range of books with information to help create and maintain a beautiful garden. You can also access the online store on the Garden Gurus Facebook page.